My brother.
All right, we're going to look at a few themes that actually represent groups of people or groups of something or other. For example, in episode 4, in episode 2, when Anakin goes to rescue his mom from the Sand People. It's not, again, it's not a theme, but we hear that use of bizarre, exotic percussion. And then this is from episode 6. All right. For a couple reasons. One, it's used for the droid army, but it's also used at least once for the clone army in episode 2, I think. But it's also interesting to me because it sounds an awful lot like a theme from another John Williams franchise, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Nazi theme. Very similar, which is kind of interesting how those two work together. All right, so this is a short one, just as fanfare.
Which is advantageous for everybody since our customers are anxious to avoid attracting attention to themselves.
And this next theme, I'm not going to make you guess because it's so darn short. I'm trying to remember if I got this queued up. Yeah. Oh. No, okay, I didn't find this one. The Death Star theme is actually 4 chords. It's just 4 chords long. But it's unmistakable that that's what we're talking about. I'll show you in a few examples. Generally, it's used in scenes where the action cuts to the Death Star to kind of set the scene, like, oh, we're at the Death Star now. So here's the example. It's just these 4 chords.
Look, I can take you as far as Anchorhead. You can get a transport there to Mos Eisley or wherever you're going.
You must do what you feel is right, of course.
Doesn't take much. Now we're on to themes that represent something a little bit more nebulous. And this, I think these are some of the most interesting ones. This theme appears in episodes 1 and 3. so obviously it also represents death itself. And it leads me to an interesting point about how John Williams uses voices. When you think about it, generally, the voice represents vitality and life and that kind of thing. And John Williams uses it the exact opposite way. Anytime you hear voices in the Star Wars soundtrack, unless it's like the Ewoks singing or something like that, this choral sound almost always represents something dark or evil. So in this case, death. Here's was used in episode 1 here for Qui-Gon Jinn's funeral. And in episode 3, this is kind of interesting, the sequence that it's used in here. It represents two different kinds of death. First is the real kind.
I know this. Still.
And then we cut to another scene where it's a different kind of death. And a little bit later in the funeral march, here without the voices, I think that's kind of an interesting there's that choral element there, but also this running. And there's another theme, another melody over there. All three of those are parts of this theme. And I say it represents the Sith, but in the same, in the way that it represents the Sith, it naturally represents the conflict between Jedi and Sith, the presence of evil and the conflict that results. So here's an example of where it's used. I think the choral element is used here. I think the whole thing is used here.
Real memories.
We'll take a long way.
But here's a scene in episode 2, a real interesting use of this theme, because there's no Sith around. We hear the Sith theme here. I think that's really interesting because it adds so much to the story in this scene. I mean, they could have played Happy Trails or something like that, and entirely done something different. But the fact that it's playing the Sith theme, you know what's going through his mind. He's feeling that conflict. He's feeling the rage and the anger towards the Sand People for abducting his mother, and so he's confronted with that evil in his own mind. Here's an example. This isn't the Sith theme, but it's an example of the use of voices in that way that I was talking about, where things are not going well, and the players